I stayed loyal through her party years. Now she calls me just a backup plan. So I did this. Backup? I'd never known how ridiculous that word could sound and make a person feel until my fiancée said it to my face. I hate to call her name, so I'll just address her as Jezebel. We've been together since our college days, and I'd say I had to go through so much to get her to finally accept me as her boyfriend. Back then, I was only just an admirer and could only watch her from a distance. But as time passed, I slowly tried to get closer to her, to know more about her. And that's when I found out she was one of those girls who claimed they had a thing for bad guys. It made me wonder what a bad guy was, and what a bad guy had that I was lacking. I'd find myself comparing myself to the guys she was always flocking around. And that's how I found out she had this big crush on a guy named Marvin. Back then, I'd always find myself trying to imitate him. I'd dress like him, try to copy his jovial lifestyle, but I still couldn't get her attention. As long as Marvin was there, Jezebel never noticed anyone. Jezebel had a hyperactive personality, and she hated being tied to one thing. She literally loved exploring. She loved anything involving parties and never missed clubbing when she had the chance. I was a loner type of guy, and I loved what was mine as well as my own space, but I tried to change and adjust just so I could fit into Jezebel's world. I started going to parties she went to, or clubs I knew she'd be at, and slowly it paid off. She noticed me. We started out by always exchanging casual pleasantries whenever we saw each other, and I'd always take the chance to take her out for lunch or buy her stuff I knew she liked, just so I could have an excuse to talk to her much longer. I got extra lucky and was paired with her and her friends for a group project one time, and that was how I was able to get even closer to her. We became close friends, and one time when we were alone together, I finally summoned the courage to confess my feelings to her. Jezebel laughed and finally blurted out that I wasn't her type of guy, and she could only see me as a friend. I was hurt, but I wasn't ready to give up just yet. So I put my feelings aside and decided to keep our relationship as friends, assuring myself that it would change with time and that there were people like us who started out as friends and later became something more. With that mindset, I found myself waiting hopelessly for her, and as if someone up there saw how pathetic I was and decided to give me a hand, Marvin suddenly transferred schools to study abroad, and that was how he got out of Jezebel's life. I was happy, and it felt like I finally had a chance, but Jezebel just wouldn't give me that chance. It was the same for the rest of my competitors, and I consoled myself, saying that as long as she wasn't committed to anyone yet, I still had a chance. We got to our third year, and it was around that time that Jezebel lost her father. They weren't very wealthy and were living off his support, so his absence took a big toll on Jezebel and her family. She had skipped school a couple of times, and it was painful to see someone so cheerful and sweet suddenly become so bleak and depressed. Taunted, I had taken up the responsibility of looking after her and had given my all to make sure she was okay. I wasn't from a wealthy home either, but I wasn't struggling. My good deed had also extended to her family, and I had volunteered to see to it that she and her family were comfortable, supporting her throughout our time in school. Supporting her family wasn't easy, so I had to pick up part-time jobs as well. It didn't matter what job it was, I had to do everything just so I could support them. I guess my efforts got noticed, and that was when Jezebel finally acknowledged my feelings and decided to give us a chance. She agreed to be my girlfriend on the condition that we'd keep our relationship a secret for the time being, because she didn't want people at school talking about our private life. At that time, I didn't think it mattered, as I was already too happy and content with the fact that she had accepted me as her boyfriend. We were a couple when we were together, but when we were out in public, we were no different from strangers, or maybe friends, just like we were before. I didn't think much about it at first and tried to understand her, but it became annoying with all the effort she had to put in to make sure nobody knew about us, not even our friends. When we were together with our friends and I tried to get closer to her or even hold her hand, she'd push me away, acting so cold that no one could even tell we were a couple. But when we were alone, she'd suddenly become the sweetest being on earth. I was hurt, but I didn't want to complain because our relationship was still new, and I didn't want her to feel I was asking too much from her. I decided to wait, give it time, until she was ready to tell at least our friends about us. It became unbearable one time when I went to visit her at her family's house, and she introduced me to her family as her friend. I was hurt. I guess I couldn't hide my displeasure, and she noticed it. When we were alone together, she apologized, asking me to give her time, and she promised she would make us official to her family. I felt some sort of comfort hearing that, but I still wasn't happy. We left later that evening to attend a birthday party of one of our friends, and that was where I let it slip. I was hurt from earlier and had exceeded my limit. I got drunk and blurted out to everyone during the game session that Jezebel and I were together. Jezebel tried to deny it and tried to stop me from talking, but I kissed her in front of everyone, confirming our relationship, and she was caught too deep to keep denying it. Our friends were shocked to hear the news, but they were also happy for us. They congratulated me for finally winning Jezebel's heart, as they all knew I had had my eyes on her for so long. We got back that night, and Jezebel exploded in rage, complaining nonstop about what happened. I had spent days apologizing and trying to fix my mistake. Then that's what I believed was right to do. I mean, what was so wrong with introducing your girlfriend to your friends? I never really thought about what was truly wrong with everything, and was so bent on gaining Jezebel's forgiveness. Finally, our fight ended after much begging, with me promising never to do anything against her will again. As crazy as it may sound, I loved Jezebel too much to imagine my future without her. Soon we graduated, and I was able to land a better paying job, just enough to make myself, my girlfriend, and her family comfortable. Jezebel threw herself into parties and social gatherings. She was deeply immersed in everything loud and bright. She loved the chaos, the music, the people, anything that made her feel alive again. I wasn't part of that world, and I never needed to be. I watched from a distance while staying loyal and patient. I was always there, making sure she had someone steady no matter how wild her nights got. She told me the parties helped her cope. She said she'd been thinking about her father a lot and that being around people, being in that energy, was the only thing keeping her from falling back into depression. I understood. I never wanted to see her sad again. And that's why I stayed loyal, because I would have walked away because I didn't sign up for this kind of wild party lifestyle. She told me to hang on until she could fully move on and accept that her dad would never come back. She promised everything would be all right, that she just needed to be in a more uplifting environment. I never went to the parties with her. I didn't dance or compete for attention. I stayed home, worked, handled my life, but my mind was always on her. I knew where she was, who she was with, and I never questioned it. I just stayed. I wanted her to have her freedom, her fun, while knowing someone would always be there for her. Someone who wouldn't leave no matter how many nights she spent elsewhere. That was me. Especially after how depressed she had been following her dad's death. I didn't want to see her gloomy again. I loved how bubbly and bright she was. I'm not going to lie, sometimes it hurts. I could feel a pang of envy when she talked about the attention she got, but I didn't care. That wasn't what real love was to me. Real love for me was about being constant, being reliable, being there when she returned from her chaotic and reckless life. I was going to be there, supporting her all the way. Years passed like this. Jezebel lived her life loudly and fully, and I stayed quietly, fiercely, and loyal without complaining. No matter how much attention she got from others, no matter how far she threw herself into the world, I endured and I stayed. I loved her. Trust me, it wasn't easy, but I did it because no one else could, and because I loved her with everything. I couldn't imagine my world without her in it. And slowly, just like she said, that phase passed. That made me believe everything she had said was true. I was glad to be there for her during those times when she was confused and trying to find her way in the dark. I had slowly started planning our future together and was already anticipating the day Jezebel and I would start our own family. Despite our different personalities, our relationship was never affected, and she was someone I felt most comfortable with. I could always share my problems with her, and she was always supportive and helped me sort out everything. When she was with me, she made me feel loved, and I was willing to do anything for her. I had no idea I was dating an actress until now, and it hurts so much to come to terms with the fact that I actually wasted 8 whole years of my life clinging to something that wasn't real from the beginning. During our anniversary, I had proposed to Jezebel, but she rejected me, stating she wasn't ready to get married yet and was still trying to build herself. I thought maybe it was because she hadn't gotten a job yet and was still trying to put her life together. So I decided to wait until she was ready. But even after she got a job and was doing just fine, her response still didn't change. I should have taken that as the first sign, maybe not the first, because looking back, I realized things had already gone wrong between us, but I just refused to acknowledge it. She would always avoid conversations about us settling down, and each time I tried to bring it up, she'd give different excuses. She was ready, she was too tired from work, and so on. It was never ending. I got fed up and decided to find out what her main reason was. And at first, I thought she was seeing someone else. So I started watching her, invading her personal space, checking her belongings. And that's when I found out my girlfriend was on a contraceptive pill and had been taking the prescription for some time. I even stumbled on a doctor's report stating she had already gotten an abortion twice. I was shocked and furious, and I immediately confronted her about it when she got home. Jezebel broke down crying, saying she had no choice but to have an abortion back then because we weren't ready to be parents. She claimed she was afraid I might not accept her pregnancy, and since we were not married yet, she was worried I might end up leaving her. Her reasons made me even more upset. She had never asked for my opinion before making such a decision. I told her I was always ready to start a family with her, and that I would never abandon her for any reason. We had a big fight that night, and she left to sleep at her apartment because she couldn't stand my outburst. A few days passed, and when I had finally calmed down, I went back to talk to her calmly, and we decided to put everything behind us and start all over again. I had made my intentions about starting a family clear to her, and Jezebel had promised to start thinking about it positively. She asked me to give her time to get used to her job first, before finally settling down. I was happy just with the fact that she was finally entertaining the thought, but my happiness got cut short faster than it was building. Marvin returned, and as bad as it could get, he was actually the brother of Jezebel's boss. He had joined the company as an intern and was slowly going to work his way up to the top. Typical rich family conduct. Jezebel had kept the fact that Marvin was back, and that he was actually in the same company as her, a secret, and I had found out about it by chance the day I went to her workplace to give her lunch. She had been refusing me each time I offered to take her out for lunch, drop her off at work, or pick her up. I had thought she was just too busy to go out, or maybe she had other reasons, but I had never imagined it was Marvin. I had texted Jezebel to tell her I was at her company's parking lot and that I had bought her lunch. But shortly after I sent the text, a car pulled up beside mine, and I was shocked when Marvin stepped out of it. We greeted each other just like before, and soon my phone started blowing up with calls and texts from Jezebel. In a flash, she appeared at the parking lot, and I could see the shock on her face when she saw me with Marvin. Before Marvin could ask about us, I immediately introduced myself to him as Jezebel's fiancé. He chuckled softly before congratulating both of us. He invited us for lunch with a smile, and before Jezebel could refuse, I immediately accepted, but told him we should make it dinner instead, because I had to return to work soon and had only stopped by to give Jezebel her lunch. He accepted, and though I didn't want to leave, I had to return to work, but I couldn't help feeling restless with the fact that Jezebel and Marvin were both working in such close proximity. After a few hours, I went to pick Jezebel up, and we both met for dinner with Marvin. My conversation with Marvin flowed well, and it wasn't uncomfortable, except for the fact that Jezebel didn't talk much. He asked when we were planning to settle down, and I assured him it would happen before the year ended. Marvin didn't look affected or uncomfortable with the topic at all, and somehow I felt relieved. It made me believe that maybe I was just overthinking things, and he might have already moved on from Jezebel. Besides, it was a long time ago, and a lot of time had passed. He also received a phone call in front of us, and with the way he spoke and the words he used, we could tell he was talking to his girlfriend. The fact that he also had someone made me feel even more relaxed, and I'd never imagined anything could actually go wrong. Our small talk soon ended, and we had to leave early because Jezebel said she had a headache and needed to rest. We parted ways with Marvin, and soon after, Jezebel started arguing. She complained, asking me why I had to show up at her workplace unannounced, and we were both arguing on our way home. She asked why I had to introduce her to Marvin as my fiancé when we were only just dating and weren't engaged yet. I got so mad at her words. I mean, what's the difference? We've been together for so long. Wasn't that enough for me to address her as my fiancé? As usual, we ended the argument with her jumping out of the car, hailing a taxi, and heading back to her own apartment. She wouldn't take my calls after that night, and she kept avoiding me. I tried meeting her at her workplace, but it was almost impossible as she refused to meet with me. Even when I went to her apartment, she was hardly home. Her mom's birthday was in a few days, and I knew she would be home to visit, so I decided to meet her there too. I got her mom a gift as usual, and went to celebrate with them just like we did every other year, but to my disappointment and shock, It felt like I wasn't even needed. The party had already started, with Marvin present, and the whole family was having fun and chatting like one big family. I could see the disappointment on Jezebel's face when I arrived. Marvin asked why I was so late, and I had to lie. I had a lot to finish at the office. That's why I arrived late. Jezebel's mom welcomed me, and when she offered to get me dinner, I refused, saying I had eaten already, because deep down I felt like I was being offered leftovers. Their chat soon continued, with them teasing about Jezebel's long crush on Marvin and many other old stories that made me feel so out of place. After a while, Marvin had to leave after receiving a phone call, and the party ended soon after. I tried to talk to Jezebel again, but she told me that the sooner I knew my place, the better it would be for both of us. As usual, I was the one apologizing, and I barely managed to fix our relationship that night. Things didn't get any better between us, and I just had to let Jezebel have her way because I didn't want to be the reason for our breakup. Her family then started asking when we were going to get married, and Jezebel finally admitted to the whole family that she was ready and was going to settle down soon. I was so happy to hear the news, as it was my biggest wish, and with Marvin around, bearing the title of her fiancé just wasn't enough. I needed to become her husband to officially own her. With that happiness, I planned a big proposal and invited our friends and everyone secretly behind Jezebel's back. My friends had advised me to throw a party for her, and since Jezebel was into extravagant things, she might have expected me to give her a grand proposal, which might also have been the reason why she had rejected my past proposals. I didn't see anything wrong with their reasoning, and with the help of her friends, I was able to plan a big event for her, just the way I knew she would like it. I had wanted to surprise her, so everyone knew about it except her. After her job that day, I picked her up and brought her to the venue, claiming I wanted us to eat out. Halfway through dinner, everyone popped out with the surprise as planned, and I slowly got down on one knee to propose, just the way my friends taught me. I wanted everything to be perfect for her. That was just how much I loved her. But instead of feeling happy and giving the reaction I had dreamt of and imagined so many times, Jezebel slowly got to her feet and turned to walk away after giving me a long stare I couldn't understand. I immediately went after her, stopping her and demanding answers from her. I was confused by her reaction, and her silence was making me even more restless. Jezebel tossed my hand away, turning to face me. I could see from her expression that she was mad. Before I could even ask the obvious, she exploded. She went on and on about how hopeless I was and asked just what I wanted her to do before I could finally give up on her. She admitted in front of everyone that she had only accepted to date me back then because she had no one left, and I was the only loyal person on her side. I was someone who was willing to give everything for her, and she had no choice but to keep me around. But I was serious and had remained persistent. I even went as far as letting everyone know about us, including her family. And because they needed me, she just couldn't reject me. She admitted that things would have gone my way if Marvin hadn't shown up in her life again, and his return was just God's sign that she was meant to be with him and not struggle with me. I could feel my ears bleed from all her honest but hurtful words. I couldn't believe what was happening. She claimed I was trying to rope her into marrying me, and she never really loved me as much as I loved her, but she was grateful for everything I did for her. She admitted she was still in love with Marvin, and now that he was back in her life, she had no reason to continue with me anymore. She cut me deeper by saying she had refused to break up with me just yet, and had kept me as her backup plan in case things with Marvin didn't go well. But since he had proposed and was taking things with her more seriously, she had no reason to keep me around and had no use for me anymore. She took out a mysterious ring, which she had been wearing on her necklace for a while now since her mother's birthday, and placed it on her finger before announcing that she was getting married, not to me, but to Marvin. I was only her backup plan, and since things were going fine with Marvin, she had no use for me anymore. I felt dizzy, and the shock from Jezebel's words left me paralyzed. I couldn't even think straight and just stood there, shocked and numbed from the pain in my chest. It felt like a knife had just pierced through it, and the tears that drooled down my cheeks felt so hot they almost burned my skin. The whole hall fell silent, with everyone looking horrified and disappointed. My dad walked out of the room, and my mom followed. My sister just couldn't take it. She walked up to Jezebel and slapped her. She warned her never to show her face to me or our family again, and Jezebel smiled lightly at my sister before walking out in front of everyone. My friends all sat down, drained and speechless, as no one, not even me, knew what else to say. We drank together the whole night, and the next day I returned to my daily life. I had trashed the rest of Jezebel's things I had in my apartment, and doing that made me realize I didn't have much of her stuff with me, except for things I wanted to keep while we dated. I had nothing of her at my place, and it only made me realize just how lonely I had been for the past years I claimed I had someone. She'd only show up at my apartment when she wanted to or felt pressured, and she'd leave just as fast, especially after we'd argue. And I'd always be the one begging for her attention. I had hoped everything would get better when we got married and she'd be living with me for good, but even that is impossible now. I couldn't even cry anymore or complain, and I just felt empty. I was still alive, but it felt like I was dead, or maybe soon going to die. My friends and family also started visiting and spending time with me, as my sudden change left them in fear and anxiety. No one could predict my next move, nor could anyone tell what I was thinking. I carried on with everything like it never happened, and everyone was worried for me, I could tell. I never saw Jezebel again after that day, and the next thing I heard about her was that she was getting married. Her marriage was the talk of the town, and our friends from school, who knew about us but were clueless about what had happened, kept calling me. My friends later found out that Jezebel had been cheating on me with Marvin long before I even found out about them working together. And Marvin had been putting on a show, toying with me and mocking me all along. I could feel my blood boil as I listened to them talk, and I had just had enough. I asked them when the wedding was happening and the venue as well. My friends asked me what I was planning, and I told them I only wanted to see them one last time. My friends scolded me, insulting me, and saying I had truly lost my mind because of Jezebel, and that there was really no hope for me. They had refused to tell me the full details about the wedding, but I found out about it on my own, and guess what? I decided to pay my foes a visit. The day of the wedding, I arrived at the venue, and everything was just as extravagant and fitting to Jezebel's taste. There were lots of guests, as well as paparazzi, all there to witness the marriage of one of the hottest bachelors in the city. They were all seated, and with the groom present, it was finally time to welcome the bride. The door swung open, and there she stood, smiling beneath her veil like she was finally living her dreams. I could feel my blood boil with pain and rage as I watched her walk down the aisle. It was time to serve what I had been preparing since the day Jezebel called me her backup plan. I wanted to go ahead with my plans right there, but I decided the reception was the perfect moment. So, I skipped the altar drama and waited for the reception. That's when everyone is seated, all loosened up, drinking, and sitting through that cheesy love story slideshow they always play on the big screens. I'd already gotten to the tech guy earlier that morning and slipped him a few bills to swap the thumb drive. Everything was going smoothly, according to plan. The lights went down, the music got all sappy, and the first few slides were just them, looking perfect on the beach. Then suddenly the screen cut to a video of Marvin. He was in some hotel room, and he wasn't alone. He was with a different girl, draped all over him. This was filmed literally 24 hours before the wedding. The room went dead silent. You could hear the ice clinking in people's glasses. The whole room froze. You could see Marvin's soul leave his body the second he recognized the background. The girl in the video started whining, acting jealous, asking him why he was even going through with the wedding if he was just going to be with her anyway. And Marvin didn't even hesitate. He laughed and told her, "Look, Jezebel is great for certain things. She's open-minded, she likes to experiment in the bedroom, and I love that about her. But let's be real. She isn't exactly the brightest. She's slow, and she's obsessed with me. I can do whatever I want right under her nose, and she'll never have a clue. I need that kind of freedom, babe, and she's too dim to ever take it away from me. The wedding isn't going to stop us, so just drop it." I was standing by, just watching. Jezebel stood up, and her face went completely ghost white. She looked at the screen, then at Marvin, then back at the screen. She gasped out, "Is that all I am to you? After all these years of waiting, a toy, just someone obsessed with you and too stupid to catch you?" She didn't even wait for him to stutter out an excuse. She just lost it, burst into tears, grabbed her dress, and bolted out of the hall. The place turned into an absolute circus. Marvin's parents were screaming at him, and Jezebel's parents and relatives weren't just sitting there in shock. They were also screaming at Marvin, demanding an explanation. and physically moving to confront him for humiliating their daughter in front of the whole city. The paparazzi were basically tackling each other to get the shot. I just finished my drink, set the glass down, and walked out the side door. I didn't even have to say a word. I just let the man's own mouth do the work for me. Best night of my life. It was a good thing I spent weeks digging into Marvin's life, doing my research, and it paid off. I had tracked down his side piece, convinced her that Marvin was only manipulating her and was only in love with Jezebel, and got her to record their last session. Update. It's been almost a month since I crashed my ex's wedding, and I had not heard any news about her since then. The last I heard about Marvin was when his old man officially pulled the plug. He had been kicked out of the family business by his dad. His father said that if he couldn't even manage his own relationship, then how was he going to manage the company, and that he had brought nothing but shame upon them? Since his father was strict, he had no choice but to kick him out, and said that until Marvin proved his worth and capability, he didn't deserve to ever show his face to him again. Everyone was gossiping, and the scandal had no end. My friends told me Jezebel and her family had to move because they couldn't handle the shame it brought, especially after bragging about her marriage to Marvin. This might not sit right with most of you, but I somehow got the peace and consolation I thought I'd never have. Although none of that could make up for the years I had lost because of Jezebel, I believed I was going to heal and that things would get better with time. That was my conclusion until Jezebel suddenly showed up in front of me again. I was on my way back from work when I saw her sitting outside my apartment door. She looked haggard and pathetic, like someone who had been abandoned after being mistreated for years. The sight of her made me question what was so special about her that made me blind to all the red flags I had seen in our relationship. I had waited until she gave me the final blow before realizing I had only been wasting my time. I ignored her and immediately called the cops and told them a woman I didn't know was harassing me at my private residence, and I felt unsafe. Jezebel dropped to her knees, crying and begging me to save her, saying she had no one else to turn to. She claimed Marvin had asked for a divorce after everything was revealed, and that instead of taking responsibility, he blamed her for everything. She said she never knew Marvin was like that, and she regrets her decisions. She said she lost her job because the company could no longer keep her, and that she was currently in debt because of her mom's unending medical bills. Her mother needed money for surgery. Her sister had abandoned them and disappeared after the scandal, and she had no one left. Her friends had turned on her and told her they couldn't help her. She apologized nonstop for hurting me and begged me to forgive her. She swore she regretted leaving and hurting me and said she really did love me. She claimed she must have lost her mind when Marvin came back and that she regretted betraying me. Her long plea of regret was becoming boring and depressing, so I cut her off. I told her I had heard all her lamentations, but they were pointless because I no longer wanted anything to do with her. I told her that the second she rejected my proposal and chose Marvin, she killed the version of me she once knew, and that the person standing in front of her no longer knew or cared about her. I told her my life was perfect, and that the thought of being with someone like her wasn't even worth considering as a backup plan. I told her that even speaking to her disgusted me, and that sharing the same airspace with her felt worse than poison. I warned her never to come near me again or try to contact me in any way. Before she could beg further, the cops arrived. When they showed up, she was in the middle of a breakdown, screaming about her mom's surgery and how Marvin ruined her. The cops saw a woman who had clearly lost her mind. They hauled her off for a psych evaluation or to the local precinct for trespassing. I didn't have to lie once. The truth of how far she'd fallen was enough to get her removed. I could see the life drain from Jezebel's face. She was already desperate for money for her mother's surgery, and now she was looking at a criminal record for trespassing and harassment. I stood and watched as the cops dragged her away without listening to her explanation. For once, she was telling the truth, but no one was willing to listen. I could hear her cries and pleas as she was taken away, but none of it made any difference to me. She wasn't important to me anymore, and nothing about her moved me. As the cop car drove away, I finally closed the chapter on that miserable part of my life, and I swore never to let myself be used by the word love again. Not in this life, and not even in the next.